Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to our second work group for clean transportation, equity, and light-duty vehicle investments. I'm going to give it a minute or two just to let folks trickle in before we get started. Numbers are slowly trickling in. I think we'll give it another minute to let folks join. All right, seems like the numbers are slowing down. All right, hello and good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. Welcome to our second work group for the Clean Transportation Equity and Light Duty Vehicle Investments. My name is Graciela Garcia, and I am the policy lead over CARB's light duty vehicle purchase incentives. I'm joined today by our Sustainable Transportation and Mobility Equity Programs lead, Violet Martin, and the rest of our amazing team who will also be presenting and answering your questions today. Before we get started, let's just go over some logistics for today's discussion. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. We do anticipate a copy of the recording and the attendee list will be made available on our low carbon transportation investments and air quality improvement program meetings and workshops webpage in approximately 2 weeks. I'm going to ask support staff to drop a link in the chat to our meetings and workshops webpage. And again, materials for today's work group, including the agenda and slides, are also available on that webpage. A link to these materials, again, will be dropped into the Zoom chat. So today we're going to be leveraging Zoom's raised hand feature to facilitate comments and questions. If there are Zoom disruptions for any reason, including malicious intent, we will immediately end today's meeting and send out another notice to reschedule. Finally, we're unable to allow anonymous meeting participants for security reasons. So please make sure your name is clear on the Zoom platform. If you've called in, we'll adjust your phone number and call you based on the last 4 digits of your number when you raise your hand. Now let's take a look at today's agenda. So as you can see, we have another packed agenda today. I'd like to note that the start times on this slide are approximate. So if a topic concludes early, we will proceed to the next item. We'll begin today's work group with an overview of CARB's clean transportation equity and light duty vehicle projects. And then we'll move into a discussion on vehicle eligibility for the projects. From there, we'll launch into a discussion on providing funding for adaptive technology for the Clean Cars for All and financing assistance programs, followed by a short break. After the break, we'll provide updates on the Assembly Bill 680 report and the Universal Dashboard. Following lunch, we'll discuss proposed changes for our sustainable clean transportation equity projects and wrap up with some next steps. So please note that we'll provide time for questions and comments before each break listed on the agenda. And with that in mind, let's get started. So before jumping into the first agenda item, I do want to give an update to folks on the status of the draft funding plan. The draft plan was posted on Monday, August 22nd. However, it was later reposted yesterday after staff discovered an error in one of the funding tables for the light duty projects, and specifically that's table 6 which outlines the proposed allocations for the vehicle purchase incentives and clean mobility investments, which has been corrected. And we do encourage folks to revisit our webpage to view the most recent version of the draft funding plan. And with that,
sorry, Grace, it's
yeah.
Stephanie, parent. I'm sorry to interrupt. I see that there's a hand raised by Linda Barata, and I just want to first make an announcement that for anyone, if the question right now is more about logistics or technical issues, like if you're not hearing the audio, we will take questions now, but otherwise, please hold your questions until we have a Q&A session in a little bit. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Stephanie. So with that, we like to traditionally kick off these meetings with a quick refresher on CARB's clean transportation equity and light duty vehicle projects. So first, I'll cover CARB's suite of vehicle purchase incentives, which includes the Clean Cars for All program, which replaces older, polluting vehicles with cleaner vehicles. This program is currently offered through participating air districts, but will be available statewide later this year. We also have the Financing Assistance Program, which provides low interest rate loans and vehicle purchase grants to lower income individuals to help them get into newer, cleaner vehicles. Our flagship statewide program, the Clean Vehicle Rebate Project, or CVRP, provides rebates for the purchase of new plug-in electric vehicles with larger incentive amounts available for lower income consumers. One of our newest efforts is the California e-bike incentive project, which is expected to launch later this year. This program will provide point of purchase incentives for new electric bicycles for low-income consumers. Access Clean California is a growing effort that strives to increase awareness of our light-duty and clean transportation equity projects and assist consumers through the application process. The payment issuance strategy and demonstrations is also a newer effort being developed by the California Integrated Travel Project and administered by the Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority. This effort will support various projects across CARB's light duty and clean transportation programs by helping to develop a streamlined payment strategy for transit and electric vehicle charging. CARB was recently allocated funds to develop and implement the Zero Emission Assurance Project, or ZAP, which will help alleviate low-income residents' concerns about premature battery degradation by providing incentives for battery or fuel cell replacements in used zero-emission vehicles. Next is our comprehensive portfolio of clean mobility investments, which the budget line item is called Sustainable Transportation Equity Projects, and continue to support zero-emission mobility by helping to address the transportation needs of Californians living in disadvantaged and low-income communities. These projects continue to provide funding for a variety of clean mobility solutions other than vehicle ownership, consistent with findings in the SB 350 guidance document. These projects include the Clean Mobility Options Voucher Pilot Project, or CMO, which is a first-come, first-served voucher program focused on one or more shared mobility services for smaller entities with limited resources and community transportation needs assessments through a statewide administrator approach. The regional clean mobility pilots from the beginning years of funding provided a foundation for CARB's understanding of the clean mobility landscape and investment implementation in priority populations and continue to be supported through CMO. We also have the Sustainable Transportation Equity Project, or STEP, which supports more complex, multifaceted clean transportation projects to address community transportation needs and reduce vehicle miles traveled, or VMT. Clean Mobility in Schools, or CMIS, centers the clean transportation needs of K-12 public school districts by specifically focusing on the unique needs of school districts in meeting their comprehensive clean transportation goals and facilitates clean transportation opportunities in and around the school community. And lastly, the Community Planning and Capacity Building Projects, or planning, to support community-led planning and capacity building projects and localized technical assistance and outreach. These projects are intended to improve local understanding of residents' transportation needs, channel communities to the right incentive funding opportunities, and prepare communities to implement clean transportation and land use projects. So let's now move on to our second topic of the day, vehicle eligibility. I'd like to introduce Raquel Cardenas. Raquel?
Thank you, Grace. Good morning, everyone. My name is Raquel Cardenas, and I am the manager over our Clean Vehicle Rebate Project and our financing assistance programs. Today, I'll be discussing vehicle eligibility for our programs, but specifically maintaining a vehicle eligibility list once CVRP closes. So CVRP, as our flagship vehicle purchase incentive program, has maintained a list of eligible vehicles for the program on its website based on the program's eligibility requirements. Over the years, a number of other programs have referenced this list for eligible new vehicles for their programs as well. This list includes new battery electric, plug-in hybrid electric, and fuel cell electric vehicles, as well as zero-emission motorcycles. In order for vehicles to be added to this list, auto manufacturers are required to apply to CARB to have their vehicles reviewed, approved, and added to CVRP's list of eligible vehicles. Manufacturers must go through this process for each new model year, as there are times where vehicle specifications may change or program requirements may change. There are criteria that vehicles must meet to be included on CVRP's list of eligible vehicles, has been workshopped with stakeholders and approved by the board through previous annual funding plan for the Clean Transportation Incentive. With CVRP closing in the coming months, staff does plan to migrate the eligible vehicle list to the CARB website in order to maintain this resource. As a refresher, here's the current board-approved criteria in place for vehicle eligibility. Vehicles must be new as identified in the specified California Vehicle Code and manufactured by original equipment manufacturers or their authorized licensees. Additionally, vehicles must meet set warranty provisions to ensure consumer safety. Specifically, the vehicle drivetrain, including the applicable energy storage system or battery pack, must be covered by a manufacturer warranty. Additional criteria includes a manufacturer's suggested retail price or MSRP cap based on the vehicle's EPA classification. This is a set maximum of $60,000 for larger vehicle categories, such as vans, trucks, and SUVs, and a maximum of $45,000 for smaller vehicle classes, such as sedans, wagons, and hatchbacks. There is also an electric range requirement for plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, set at a minimum of 30 miles range on electricity alone. For fiscal year 23-24, staff does propose to maintain the vehicle eligibility list the eligibility currently in place, and staff will revisit these criteria and update them as needed through future funding plans. With CVRP closing in the coming months, staff also proposes to migrate the list of eligible vehicles from the CVRP website to the CARB website by late 2023 in order to maintain this resource. CARB's vehicle purchase incentive programs, such as financing assistance and Clean Cars for All, could continue to reference this list for eligible new vehicles for their programs, but would also have the flexibility to set stricter requirements for each individual program as needed. So with that, we will open it up for some questions, and I will turn it over to Stephanie Parent to help moderate this.
Great, thank you, Raquel. Good morning, everyone. I'm Stephanie Parent, and I'll be handling this question and answer session. If you would like to make a comment or ask a question, please use the webinar feature to raise your hand. And if you're using the Zoom online, you can click the raise hand option on the Zoom navigation bar under the participants tab. For those using Zoom on a mobile application, please click on the raise hand option in the More tab. And for those of you who are joining us by telephone, please be sure to press #2 and we will call on you accordingly. Once your line is open, you can begin to speak. Please state your name and affiliation first before providing a comment or asking a question. Okay, I do see that we have a couple of hands raised. So Chris Chavez, I have unmuted your line. Please unmute on your end and begin.
Yes, thank you. It's Chris Chavez with Coalition for Clean Air. Regarding CVRP, and I asked this question at the last one of the previous workshops, and as you indicated, CVRP is ending this year. I still don't see any sort of indication or any sort of communication, letting consumers know that this program, which has been around for over a decade, is ending. And I think that we're putting ourselves in a situation where consumers may be caught off guard that this resource, this incentive program is going away. So what is CARB or the administrator of the program? Is there going to be some sort of education program coming up in the near future?
Thank you, Chris, for that question. So this week on Monday, CARB put out a press release signaling that CVRP was coming to a close and we would be transitioning our focus to our equity programs, specifically Clean Cars for All and financing assistance going forward. So that did go out Monday. Additionally, our administrator has been continuing to put messaging on the website itself and is working very closely with other program administrators to spread the word, as well as with their CBO network to spread the message at a community level. And so that's where things are right now. We will also continue to use CVRP social media channels to continue to spread the word as things change. Again, the funds are running quickly, and as we get closer to them being fully expended, we will continue to push that messaging. So that's where things are right now.
Okay, yeah, because I was just looking at the CVRP website and it doesn't say anything about the program ending. It just says actually there's more money, they're giving out more money for charge cards, which is fine. I'm not criticizing the cards themselves. I just think that hearing that there's at least some thought about intentional messaging, I think is good. I just want to stress the need to communicate, especially with the LMI, the low to moderate income consumers.
Thanks, Chris. There should be a banner at the top of the webpage that also mentions that funds are going quickly and links to an FAQ. I will double check to make sure that's still up there, and if not, we'll make sure that gets put right back up there. But that has been up for a couple of weeks now.
Okay. Thanks, Chris, for that question, and Raquel for the response. Paul Hagan, hold on. Okay, I've asked you to unmute on your end. Please go ahead and ask your question or make your comment.
Yes, my name is Paul Haugen. I'm representing myself, retired person. Actually, my question was also about the CVRP program closing. I did not know that till just now. And does this mean that Clean Cars for All will be, doesn't sound like there's going to be any funds to be absorbed by another program, but that the Clean Cars for All will be basically the program to start with when people want to look at the rebates and the incentives? That was my first quick question. The other one, I did not see DCAP mentioned in the initial first discussion on funding. Does that mean also that they are no longer going to be in the picture? Thank you.
Hi, Paul. Thank you for your questions. So for the time being, the CVRP program is still open as it's working on spending down funds. Once funds are expended, the program will close to new applications. Additionally, Clean Cars for All is still being offered to the 5 air districts that are implementing the program. At the moment, our financing assistance programs, the DCAP program that you mentioned, as well as the statewide Clean Vehicle Assistance Program, is currently closed as we phase into the newer statewide program that will be launching later this year, early next year. And that will be a joint program with financing assistance and statewide Clean Cars for All. which will encompass the other areas of the state not currently being served by the district CC4A programs. And so that'll be the next big program to launch for us, and will be our next focus. Is our sole focus is these equity purchase incentive programs.
Okay. Do you know if there's going to be a significant drop in funding overall, or if it's going to be more or about the same, or is it too early to tell?
In terms of the program funding, I don't anticipate a drop in funding. You know, we were allocated a significant amount of funding to the statewide Clean Cars for All, as well as the new financing assistance program that will relaunch. And so we don't anticipate any funding gaps over the next fiscal year. In terms of what's available incentive amounts, we don't anticipate any drop in what we're offering there.
Okay. And the earliest funding then will be available would be January, February 24 for the new.
Yeah, as we're working to get a grant in place and get the administrator on board, working with their partners, and again, launching this newer program.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Paul, for your questions, and Raquel for the responses. So I will ask, I don't see any other hands right now, but if anybody has a question, then feel free to raise your hand, or our telephone participant looks like they maybe dropped off. So yes, if there are any questions, feel free to raise your hand now. And this would be on the two topics that were presented, the overview and information about the Clean Vehicle Rebate Project. But so far, I'm not seeing any hands. So if there aren't any other questions right now, we could move on to the next portion of our presentation.
Great. Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks everyone for your questions. So we're now going to move to our next topic on funding for adaptive technology. And I'd like to introduce my colleague, Anthony Poggi, to bring up this topic. Anthony.
Thank you, Grace. Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Poggi, and I'm the lead over the Clean Cars for All program. I'm joined today by my colleague, Ali Kostani, who is lead over the Financing Assistance Program, to help answer any questions that may come up about funding for adaptive technology. In addition to the fiscal year 2023-24 funding allocations, staff is considering eligibility for adaptive equipment in the Clean Cars for All and Financing Assistance programs. Language included in the Budget Act of 2022 provided direction for CARB staff to consider increased incentive levels to accommodate increased costs associated with adaptive equipment for eligible Californians with physical disabilities. These incentives would reduce barriers to the program by lowering the financial burden for participants who require this equipment in order to operate a vehicle. Adaptive equipment ranges from relatively inexpensive items, such as pedal extenders and steering knobs, to much more expensive installations, such as vehicle lifts and ramps, which may cost tens of thousands of dollars. Staff will continue to research adaptive equipment and incorporate stakeholder and community feedback to determine how best to implement this change, as well as the appropriate funding amounts. As staff continues to analyze this potential program change, we'd like to take this opportunity to gather initial thoughts, concerns, or questions regarding adding adaptive equipment to the Clean Cars for All and Financing Assistance programs. I'll hand it over to Stephanie Parent so we can begin that discussion.
Thanks, Anthony. Oh, did I hear someone? Nope, I guess not. Okay. So again, everyone, if you have a question or a comment that relates to adaptive technology retrofits, please go ahead and raise your hand. And you can use the Zoom feature to raise your hand, or if you're joining us by telephone, please use #2. And when I call on you, if you could please state your name and your affiliation so that we have it for the record. Thank you. Okay, I do have a hand from Cindy Mahone. Sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly. I have unmuted your microphone. Please go ahead.
Good morning. This is Cindy Mann. I'm a program supervisor with the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District. And I would just like to say that we support the promotion of trying to add in funds for adaptive equipment. So thank you for considering this. And we'll continue to work with you on how best to do this. So thank you for considering this.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thanks, Grace. Sorry, I forgot I was muted. So again, if anyone else has a question or comment related to this topic, please go ahead and raise your hand. So far, I'm not seeing anything. And of course, if someone thinks of a question related to this topic later on, then we could probably take that question at a later point as well. But seeing that there are no raised hands at this point, I will suggest that we move on to the next topic.
Perfect. We're just moving right along this morning. Thank you, Stephanie. So let's move past the 10-minute break and move on to our topic following the break, which I believe is the AB 630 report. I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Tiffany Nguyen, to kick off this topic. Tiffany?
Great. Thank you, Grace. Hello, everyone. My name is Tiffany Nguyen, and I'm a staff member over on the Clean Cars for All program. Today, I will be providing updates regarding the Assembly Bill 630 report. Also known as the Evaluation and Goal Setting Report, AB 630 directs CARB to set specific and measurable goals and to establish metrics for the Clean Cars for All program. This report will inform the long-term direction of Clean Cars for All and supplements other long-term plans, such as the long-term plan for light-duty EV market and other vehicle purchase incentive plans. CARB seeks to incorporate stakeholder and community inputs in determining the metrics that should be utilized and incorporated into this report. CARB has met with the various air districts to collect and begin the compiling of quantitative data from surveys, outreach efforts, and to include input with CBOs. Last year, CARB had introduced new surveys with a focus on demographic data. Those surveys have been released and CARB is currently pending data. Additionally, under the direction of SB 1382, CARB will be conducting an assessment in the identification of underserved populations, barriers preventing these populations from program participation, and to propose strategies that will overcome those barriers. CARB is proposing using Cal EnviroScreen 4.0 to establish a baseline analysis. In using Cal EnviroScreen, factors such as linguistic isolation, ethnicity, and poverty assessment will be utilized in providing a comprehensive overview in identifying these underserved populations and to begin the identification of potential strategies to overcome program barriers. In conjunction with this proposed analysis, survey results, and data from districts, CARB can have a holistic overview in how to best continue supporting communities most in need. In previous work groups, stakeholders have requested a status update on district and statewide CC4A allocations. The slide above shows the cumulative funding as well as funds remaining for all administering districts as well as the statewide CC4A. CARB continues to collaborate with the districts on this aspect. And with that, we will go ahead and open it up for questions and comments.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Diane Sanchez, and I'll be taking comments and questions at this point. So for those of you using Zoom online, please click on the raised hand option on the Zoom navigation bar under the Participants tab. If you're using Zoom on a mobile application, please click on the raised hand option in the More tab. And if you're participating by phone, please press #2 and we can call on you accordingly. So once your line is open, you can begin to speak. Make sure to state your name and affiliation first before providing your comment or asking a question. So if anyone has a comment or question, go ahead and raise your hands now. All right, let's go to Chris Chavez. you are now able to speak.
Great, thank you very much. Chris Shaw, Coalition for Clean Air again. Regarding so I appreciate seeing the spin down amounts and what the districts have remaining. I think that is helpful and something that had been asked for a while. In terms of last year's funding, could you kind of explain what the current status of last year, the funding that was allocated to Clean Cars for All last year is, and if that is included in the figures that you just showed?
Great question, Chris. So the funding, if we could go back one slide, that'd be great. So this is the cumulative funding for all programs. So this also includes the allocation from last year's as well. So from beginning to end, this is what we're looking at. Is there anything else that we would like to add to that, Anthony? I think I needed a little, want to kick it over to you, see if there's anything else to add.
Sure, yeah. So the districts we expect them to start spending the money from last year very shortly. They have been still working through their previous year's funding allocations up until recently, in which 3 of them, I want to say, out of the 5 are very close to exhausting their fiscal year 21-22 funds, and so they should begin to spend their 22-23 funds very shortly.
Okay, and in terms of the amounts that are remaining, how does that compare in terms of how much they spend per year? So will there be like just based off of historical trends, will there be a shortfall in funding for some of these districts that have more active programs, or do you expect this to last them throughout the entire year?
I would expect them, judging by historical pace, they received much smaller allocations 2 years ago. If you recall, 3 districts received contingency funding in October of 2021, and it's taken them close to 2 years to spend that money. They received larger amounts of funds last year, so we expect it to last much longer than a year.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other hands? All right, not seeing any more raised hands. So I think we can go ahead and move on.
Great, thanks, Diane. So let's see, moving right along, we're gonna begin our update to the universal dashboard work that CARB has been working.
Sorry, Grace, we had a last minute hand.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to take that.
Let's go ahead and take it because we have extra time.
Yeah, that sounds great. Okay, Luis Olmedo, I'm allowing you to speak now. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm sorry, I'm having to do 2 meetings at the same time, but I did have an important question. Does the state of California, has the state of California recognized that it is not prioritizing rural communities? I mean, because all the data and investments, it clearly shows that rural California is not a priority. It's not important. There's no equity. I mean, we lack chargers. We lack access to, these allocations. So has California has been honest to itself and just tell rural California, you're not a priority? I mean, it would be great to hear that, because regardless of all this talk about Calambira screen and there is no one centralized location that California can really show a report card and says, rural California, we care about you. You're pretty much taking on all this burden of pollution, putting food on the table, because, like agriculture communities, most of them are in rural California. And I mean, I would just love to hear the state of California just admit to that, because, even us trying to put EV chargers so that we're not left behind, even though the fact that I'm in a community that we intend to extract lithium, that we're not having the same access to the same consumer products and the same level of investments. I mean, there is no equity in any of this. There's just a lot of talk and a lot of fancy words. And it would just be great for California to just tell us, sorry, but you're not important to us. So does somebody have an answer to that?
Yeah, thanks, Luis, for your comments. And, we at the Air Resources Board, we do recognize that there are gaps in funding and opportunities. And as a part of our work with these programs, we have begun, shifting, prioritizing some of these funds and, kind of taking a look at where our funds have historically gone and looking at the gaps and then, proposing program changes so that we can start focusing those dollars in areas that have historically been underfunded, such as the rural communities, as you mentioned. I do want to note that we do a few of our programs, such as the Clean Mobility in Schools program, is focused in rural areas, but I recognize we do have a long way to go and it's a first step, but we certainly do appreciate you coming and providing your comments.
And this is Stephanie Parent, and I would just like to add that, also for the Clean Cars for All program, moving to adding a statewide program to the already existing Air District programs, that statewide portion of it will help to bring vehicle incentives and other mobility incentives, such as public transit passes and e-bikes, electric bikes, to more rural parts of California as well.
Hi, this is Sam Greger. I'm a manager at CARB. I don't know if my camera is on or not, but thank you for your comments. One thing we've consistently tried to do internally is talk about how we can target rural and agricultural areas. We did have an agricultural van pool program a few years ago that tried to get cleaner transportation for agricultural workers. We've got a number of mobility projects that have been launched in rural areas. But you're right, in one sense, we haven't invested as much money as we can in rural areas. What I'd love to do is get your contact information and talk with you offline and get your ideas. One of the things that I've been talking with one of my staff about is how we can increase the efforts to get investments, both vehicle purchasing and mobility investments, out to agricultural and rural areas. So yeah, we appreciate your feedback today, though.
Thank you. I registered to the webinar, so it's luis@ccbhealth.org. Yeah, hopefully you get in contact. Love to have conversations about this. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to add one more thing that I forgot. Luis, you had mentioned about infrastructure. And so just to also mention that the California Air Resources Board, we do partner and collaborate with the California Energy Commission, also known as the CEC. And they've been provided the authority over the vehicle charging infrastructure. So, we are taking steps to try to spread out the infrastructure around the state, though I cannot say that I know specifics about where the plans are for installing those at this point.
So the plan is that I'm the only one developing fast chargers in the Imperial Valley. I'm the only one. I'm the only nonprofit, it comes out to be, that is environmental justice, that is building millions of dollars of infrastructure. If we don't put the infrastructure, the people aren't gonna have the confidence to invest if there is, drive range anxiety. So I need partners. I need to make this happen. All of you are investing in Wall Street. What about Main Street, or as my good friend Ray Leon says, our streets? You're not doing that. And I have the evidence and I have the data to prove that. And, both on the record and off the record. I mean, I'm being told, hey, CEC is investing in, metropolitan areas. That's what the market is. We don't care about you rural. We'll throw a few, bones at you, but that's about it. That's not where we're focusing. And that's why, imagine that, the growing frustration and all the monies, I get lured into programs that are putting a little tiny bit, at best I might get 20% rebate. And I see other programs where Wall Street has been invited to 75% to 100% of the cost has been paid by the state. That's inequity, that's injustice, that's discrimination. All the money's gone into these programs and then they check the box by giving one of our allied partners, which is great. give them money, but you can't check the box and say, oh, we did equity. And then when I go back and say, hey, I need money for, upgrades on utility. I need money for site improvements. And it's like, oh, we'll give money, to this EJ organization for equity. Ask them. I said, they don't have capital. You guys are giving Wall Street the capital. And the same goes with the cars, like it's not hitting our rural communities. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this. It goes hand in hand. You can reduce driver anxiety without the infrastructure, and having two conversations about the cars and the infrastructure. That's just not a coordinated way to approach these programs. It needs to be conversation. And we, environmental justice and rural communities, we need you as partners. Don't just send us off into some program and, oh yeah, here's a rebate. We need partnerships to be able to tap into capital, and be able to bring this same resource to everyone, to every Californian, not just discriminate and go to coastal cities, everywhere in California. Thank you.
Thanks, Luis. I hear you. And yeah, I just wanted to know that I hear you and I'm listening, and we will be able to get in touch with you and then also with the California Energy Commission to try to build that relationship and that partnership. And I think I heard Diane's voice, so I will mute myself and let you speak.
All right, no problem. Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Luis. So we have another raised hand, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute Chris Chavez. You should now be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you again, Chris Shaw, Coalition for Clean Air. I had a follow-up question, but really first on Luis's comments. I really want to echo and agree with the need to invest in rural communities that do have these very high barriers to clean transportation. I think it's just important to recognize that what resources that they do have, they've practically invented themselves. In the sense like what the city of Huron did with the Green Identitos program, what Luis with Comité Cívico is doing with the charging infrastructure out in Imperial County, Eastern Coachella Valley. Those were all initiatives that they took on. So I agree that there is definitely a need for stronger community partnerships and really community ownership of charging infrastructure and vehicle access. Really should be the ideal, and certainly just want to lend my support and echo those comments. My question back on Clean Cars for All is basically in terms of that kind of the funding from last year. Just getting back to that really quickly, has CARB sent the funding to those districts yet? And if not, when will those allocations be expected?
So Chris, those grant agreements were signed earlier this year, and they are eligible once they fulfill a few of the requirements in the grant agreements, which they are working on currently, and they will be eligible for their first disbursement. So we expect to start getting that money out very soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. All right, I'm not seeing any more hands at this point. So I think we can move on.
Great, thanks, Diane. So we're going to move on to our next topic, which is we're going to give folks an update on our work around the universal dashboard. So I'd like to bring Raquel Cardenas back to kick off this topic.
Yes, so we will turn it over to Meghna Eluganti and Caitlin Fretz with the Center for Sustainable Energy to provide an update on the universal dashboard. And as a quick reminder, this is part of an effort that makes the data from all of our vehicle purchase incentive programs publicly available in one spot to make it more accessible. It would also be a coordinated effort with a universal survey for our purchase incentive programs that data from that survey will feed directly into this dashboard. And so with that, I will turn it over to Meghna and Caitlin.
Thanks, Raquel. Let me start sharing the screen. All right. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes, but it's not in presentation mode.
Sorry.
There we go.
All right, perfect. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining the call today. We'll be talking about Universal Dashboard, and to start off our agenda for today, we'll quickly provide some background context on the project, the timeline, and the dashboard development process. My colleague Caitlin will show contents available within the dashboard and demonstrate the interactive features to customize user insights. We'll then go into a feedback session to take any comments and questions, and lastly go over next steps for the project. To start off, what is the purpose of the session? We would like for dashboard users to provide feedback on the dashboard user experience and look and function. The feedback will help with future dashboard development. So to start off, to give an introduction on the project, what is Universal Dashboard? This is an interactive tool that serves as a centralized location for information primarily relating CARB light-duty zero-emission vehicle purchase incentive programs, which is aimed at promoting adoption for clean transportation in the state of California. Medium to heavy-duty EV data is currently not presented in the data. And also to note, the name of the dashboard, which is the Universal Dashboard, is currently a working title. We are finalizing the official name of the dashboard in the next week or so. So what does the dashboard include? The dashboard includes, but not limited to, Clean Cars for All, Clean Vehicle Rebate Project, financial assistance programs such as Clean Vehicle Assistance Program, Drive Clean Assistance Program, and Clean Fuel Rewards Program. Just to note that a CFR program is currently not shown in the dashboard due to limited number of data fields. Also to note that although there was interest among stakeholders to include public charging information, this first version of the dashboard is limited to providing information on California light-duty EV incentive programs and the EV market landscape. So with that, what is the goal of the dashboard? The goal of the dashboard is to unify and help with monitoring and comparing key performance metrics, or KPIs, across all of CARB's EV incentive programs. So using data visualization and equity best practices, the dashboard aims at making complex information easy to comprehend for dashboard users. So with the interest of time, I'd like to quickly go over the project timeline. The project is divided into 4 phases. We are currently in the phase 2 of the project, where we've developed the MVP version of the dashboard. We plan to launch the first version of the dashboard in Q4 of 2023 and continue updating it on a quarterly basis post the dashboard launch. Excuse me. So what is MVP and what is in the MVP version? The MVP stands for minimum viable product. It's an initial version of the dashboard that includes interactive features for users to customize their view on CARB's EV incentive program data. It includes data on incentive application volume, funds allocated, geographic location of the program applicant and household demographic information, as well as program participants' incentivized vehicle characteristics. So touching on the dashboard development process, to build the MVP dashboard, we started by defining goals and limitations and conducted interviews with stakeholders to identify KPIs. The KPIs were identified based on questions for interviews, such as how they use the EV data, which programs they typically interact with, what program metrics do they reference when they discuss California EV programs, and what information they're interested in but not currently available. Based on these questions, we developed, we received some metrics, KPIs or metrics, and then we analyzed trends within these KPIs and identified gaps based on the current available data across these programs. And we developed this first version of the dashboard based on the current data availability. So with that being said, I'd like to quickly touch on the high-level KPIs that were surfaced in the interviews. So these are the top 5 most requested KPIs. One being consumer demographics. Consumer demographics was something people were interested in understanding disadvantaged community status, household income, race, and ethnicity of program participants. They're also interested in knowing the geographical coverage of each program at a county level. If a program participation within disadvantaged communities, how many are within them, are within the disadvantaged communities and not. They're also interested in knowing program information and eligibility requirements, incentivized vehicles, vehicle characteristics, and lastly, number of EVs rebated or incentivized and number of EVs registered at a location. So those are the top 5 KPI metrics, or 5 metrics that were identified in the interviews. With that, I would like to now pass it on to my colleague Caitlin, who will be previewing the dashboard pages.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Magda. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So these questions are some items of feedback we would like to hear from you. And I believe these questions will be provided in the chat. So please feel free to reference that as we move through these screenshots and then the interactive dashboard. Next slide, please. All right, so this dashboard currently has 5 sections, one of which the applicant's page has 3 subpages. The next few slides will go through each page, during which we'll provide a very quick description. After the screenshots, we're going to walk through the interactive site and then share a link so that you can go around and click and explore and kind of see what we've been able to do. The Overview tab serves as an executive summary for the dashboard, with the focus being on the key performance indicators at the top, directly beneath the icons. Throughout our interviews, program participation and funding availability were frequently requested KPIs, and we're hoping by presenting remaining funds, as well as applications over time with annotations of project funding, will help answer consumer questions about trends in funding availability and overall program interest. Please note that the last KPI, funds remaining, is still in work as we finalize the total funding available for incentives from each program. The area chart below the KPIs highlights the rate at which approved applications were submitted for each program. We've also been messing around with this application trend graph. So the visual you're seeing here will be slightly modified in the interactive version. The last chart highlights the EV market capture throughout the state of California by looking at the number of EVs that were registered for each year compared to the number of incentives that were distributed. This data is available from CARB's Fleet Tool. Next slide, please. All right, the program tab aims to highlight 2 key variables from each program. 1, where is the program active? And 2, how much funding is being used in each program? Geography was a metric requested by interviewees, and by showing where each program is active, we're hoping users can quickly identify which programs they may be eligible for. The second visualization describes the total funding distributed by each program, as well as a measure of how much of the program's funding has been distributed in percentages. The last visualization provides context to the program data, as not all these programs ran concurrently, and some of these programs have limited data available. So this chart functions as a pseudo Gantt chart to illustrate the timeframes during which we have data available and are thus reported in the dashboard. The Vehicle tab provides some general descriptive information about eligible vehicles within each program, including how popular they were with applicants and their average MSRP for new electric vehicles. At the top, you'll see that the total number of rebates issued by vehicle type are highlighted in those boxes, and you can see that the dark green color, which illustrates battery electric vehicles or BEVs, dominate these programs. The middle visualization references a lot of information, including the vehicle make, the average MSRP for new EVs, by vehicle type, and then how popular each vehicle is within the programs. By hovering over this visualization, you can glean even more information, including the range of vehicle years. The last visualization simply breaks down the rebates issued by vehicle make and model and colors them by the vehicle type. So the larger the rectangle, the more popular the vehicle is with program applicants. So this is the Applicants tab, which is actually 3 subpages embedded into one. When you click on the Applicant Navigation tab, a drop-down will appear and require users to select whether they want to see a demographic, household, or geographic information slide. The demographic information, which is to the far left, includes variables that describe each applicant, including the gender, age, and race and ethnicity. As of right now, this data is only available for the CVRP program, which is why there's a red text highlighting that, just describing that this information is only available for the one program, and we're working on cleaning the data for the others. In the middle slide, you'll see household information includes variables like collective household income and size. And then the last page over to the left, to the right, is the geography, which will provide information on the spatial distribution of applicants, including by county, city, and census tracts. Right now, we are highlighting disadvantaged and low-income communities and non-disadvantaged and low-income communities. This is a highlight to highlight the equity within the state of California and where these programs have been working and funds distributed. All right, so our last page is our resources page and is our catch-all for notes that provide additional context to each program. This page will augment other resources on the CARB website and provide a very quick debrief of each program to orient users new to the dashboard. The external links to program websites will be added and highlighted throughout the page. All right, and with that, we do want to make note that this dashboard is still under development and that some things, again, will be different from the screenshots that were shared. And from there, I will share my screen and walk through the interactive pieces. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so this is the current version of the publicly available Universal Dashboard. Name is again pending. So right now I'm going to highlight several key interactive functions. First being the navigation tab at the top. Next, this one being the icons over here with different functions, including the info button, filters, and download availability. Next, we're going to go over hover tab, and then as well as the ability to filter within visualizations. So first off is, again, the navigation panes up here. So as you go through and click, you'll be able to move in between the pages of the dashboard. So it's very simple to move between tabs. The next thing I'm going to show is this info button. So in order to get a better understanding of what data is in the dashboard and some of the functionality, we do have this little tutorial. So this describes the data in the programs, as well as what I'm showing you right now, which is the navigation tabs, what the icons do, the filter pane, and then the hover text and what appears when you move over these visualizations. The filter pane is right here, which provides a list of all the fields that are available to filter the data by. So for example, what we'll do is we'll filter by and highlight the CC4A program. So if we click apply, you'll see that all of these values are now filtered and reflect the CC4A program. And then the next thing I'm going to hover is the hover text. So as you move over these visuals, you'll see additional information pop up. So this includes not only the funds that are distributed for that 1 year, but we also provide cumulative values. And this is also available over here. So as you move, the visualizations will change and kind of show the progress of each program. I do want to note that each of these have an independent axis. So, these are showing the trends over time, but you can't really compare between programs directly, which is why there is this guy over here, which does show that the magnitude between these programs is, varies widely. CVRP peaks at, around 73,000 applications, and these other ones are much smaller. Same thing here, is as you pan over, you'll see those information changing to reflect the information as you hover over it. Now, the next thing I'm going to highlight is the vehicles pane, because again, this visualization is rather complex. So as you hover over it, it provides a lot of information and how to interpret these numbers. We also did provide a legend. So as you click on this, you'll see, just a very visual description of how the different pieces of information are shown, including the number of incentives issued. So as the size changes, vehicles are more popular. The color indicates vehicle type. And then the range between here indicates the range of MSRP between vehicle types. So, for example, here, Tesla only produces battery electric vehicles as of right now. So that has a single value that does dominate because the battery electric vehicles are very popular within all of these rebate programs. All right. The last thing I did want to show is the download capability. So right now, the PDF and PowerPoint download functionality is being developed. So they're not accessible right now, but they will be soon. And the availability to download the image of the dashboard here, all you do is you click on that download icon, and you'll be able to see a little image that pops up. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this, but it just downloads a full PNG image of the dashboard. And just lets you see kind of what you've been able to filter and what you're looking at. All right, so I think this is it, and we're hopefully going to be sharing the link to this dashboard soon. And feel free to explore, mouse around, and let us know what you think.
Thanks, Caitlin. Let me start sharing my screen. right, with that, we're ready to take any questions or comments. Please raise your hand and let us know what your thoughts.
And Magna, I apologize if I pronounced your name incorrectly, but I can help out with the Q&A and raised hands and whatnot. Okay.
Thanks, Stephanie.
You're welcome. So again, everyone, I do see a few hands raised already, but just a reminder that if you would like to ask a question about the universal dashboard or make a comment, please raise your hand if you're in the Zoom feature. And if you're joining us by telephone, feel free to press, I believe it's #2 on your phone to let us know that you have a question. So with that, Alexander Boom. Oh, and I should mention, please state your name and your affiliation so that we have it for our records. So Alexander Boom, I have just unmuted you, so please unmute on your end and go ahead.
Hi, everyone. This is Alexander Boom. I'm the CEO of PowerBoom, a company focused on deploying solar-powered electric vehicle charging in California. And I think it's really wonderful that this dashboard is going to be available. I love the data on the different demographics and how much program funds are being used. I think it'll be really, really useful for individuals, for companies that are looking to support electric vehicle drivers. One thing that I was wondering about as we went through it is just information on the charging side. And so is that something that you think would be a fit for this dashboard or for a different dashboard in terms of program funds that are available for individuals and for companies that are looking to provide charging in a particular community or area, as well as some type of map that shows EV drivers where they can find public charging stations or semi-public charging stations in the area. So yeah, thanks for taking us through the dashboard, and really excited to see this come to life.
Thanks, Alexander, for your comment. So I can take that comment. So this current version is only limited to the EV incentive programs and EV market landscape. With that being said, we're looking into linking the resources page, like publicly available dashboards, which is like alternative fuels data center AFTC dashboard, as well as CEC's public and private charger information dashboard within our dashboard itself. So that's the game plan for now.
Wonderful, that's helpful. As someone who has lots of different tools, the more centralization of the dashboards are linked to one another, I know the easier it makes my life. So I'm glad to hear that there's a plan to connect them. Thanks for that feedback.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Alexander. So then next I see Linda Urata. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. I have unmuted you. Please go ahead.
Good morning. This is Linda Urata. I'm with Kern Council of Governments and based in Bakersfield, California, to give you reference. I want to thank the CSC. Their information has always been useful to us. And I just wanted to give you an idea of how we use this information, because I think that helps you to understand the types of reports or downloads that are available to the people that are using them. So for our purposes, we appreciate that we can sort by air district and we can sort by county, and that we can download the Excel data. And we use that to track progress throughout Kern County in all of our communities. Twice a year, we give our city members, staff agencies, and our board of directors reports by zip code of where the rebates have been issued. So they have an idea of how much money is coming back into their county from this. We give them an idea every 6 months of where new stations have been installed. So it's useful to us for reporting back to our communities, to the public, and to their city staff and county staff. We also use the demographics and market information to drive media campaigns. We budget money every year in our overall work program to conduct mass marketing campaigns, whether that's through digital outreach or television or radio. And so the data that you provide to us is useful for us to understand where the markets are growing and what audiences we need to be able to reach, or which audiences have not yet been reached, as the gentleman from Imperial County was talking about. How do we reach out to the under-resourced groups? So I wanted to say thank you for doing this, and just to give you this idea of how an MPO can or does use your data.
Thank you so much, Linda. We appreciate your comments. The goal is for this to be a centralized location and have as many insights as possible for the user who's using the dashboard, I suppose. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. And someone sent us a it's a CEC EV chargers information webpage and map for the state of California. And so I'm going to drop that in the chat for everyone. So you should have that now. And then I'll just remind everyone that if there are more questions about the universal dashboard, we're happy to answer them, and please raise your hand or press #2 on your telephone if you have a question or you'd like to make a comment. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. So with that, I think we could probably move on to the next topic, though. Raquel, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, before I move on, I just want to let folks know that this isn't like the last time you can provide feedback on the universal dashboard. So definitely take some time to digest what CSE has presented here, and feel free to always reach out. We have our email address at the end of the CARB presentation if you want to reach out and provide specific comments, and we will make sure that gets back to the universal dashboard team.
Thanks, Raquel. I'd like to quickly go over next step slide just so everyone's aware. So just to wrap up, we plan to gather the feedback from the session today, and we're also conducting additional interviews with our primary stakeholders in the next few weeks. Following that, we'll create a pipeline of enhancements for version 1 of the dashboard and further conduct user acceptance testing and launch the dashboard in Q4 of 2023. With that, that is all from our team, and feel free to reach us for any follow-up questions at my first name, Meghna.last name Elganti @energycenter.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Meghna and Caitlin from CSE. So we're going to quickly transition. We're going to pull the CARB presentation back up, and we're operating very efficiently today. So we're going to move on with our next and final topic of the day, which is the proposed changes for our sustainable community-based transportation equity project. So I'd like to introduce Violet Martin to kick off this topic.
Thank you, Grace. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so good morning, everyone. My name is Violet Martin, and I'll be discussing staff's proposed changes for sustainable community-based transportation equity projects. So this category refers to the planning, capacity building, and mobility investments that Grace described a bit earlier today in the presentation. So for fiscal year 23-24, we have 2 main objectives for planning and the suite of mobility subprograms. The first is to streamline access to funds. This may include continuing a 2-phased application approach to make it easier for communities to submit an initial application, but this also depends greatly on whether communities like this approach based on our current request for applications for planning, CMIS, and STEP, as well as window 2 for the CMO mobility project vouchers. To truly streamline access to the funds, however, we are proposing to combine the application, timeline, and grant process for all 4 project categories, including CMO, CMIS, STEP, and planning, while preserving the goals and priorities of each. CARB would oversee the development of the request for applications and select the projects. The second objective is to streamline the administration of project funding. Currently, CARB is soliciting for a statewide planning administrator, which CARB proposes to supplement and continue using for planning capacity building projects selected with fiscal year 23-24 funds. CARB would also solicit for a new mobility administrator to help manage the CARB selected CMO, CMIS, and STEP projects. The administrators would work in coordination with CARB, but be responsible for administering the projects while also providing capacity building and project implementation support, which may include things like assistance with collecting and analyzing data and facilitating peer-to-peer learning. There is a total of 60 million allocated. So I think we need next slide, thank you. There's a total of 60 million allocated for planning and mobility efforts. We didn't hear anything from stakeholders about the ranges that we originally proposed. So we're proposing 10 million for planning. And with this, we expect most projects to be about 200,000, but some may go up to 500,000. So the range of projects would likely be between 25 and 37 community-led projects with this amount. Also, a percentage of the 10 million would go to the planning administrator. The remaining 50 million would be allocated to mobility. And of this amount, we propose an even split between CMO, CMIS, and STEP. A portion of these funds would also go to the mobility administrator. And this amount is not yet determined, but dependent on the specific administrator task, which will likely differ from past administrator roles. In November, we'll take the proposed category funding splits to the board. There are a number of details that we'll figure out with the public after the funding plan is approved, and these discussions will happen during implementation work groups in the winter and spring of 23-24. So during those conversations, we need to determine the funding amounts allocated to the community-based projects and to the mobility administrator. For project selection, we must first decide if we want to do a new solicitation or fund previously received applications or a combination of the two. And if we do a new solicitation, what criteria do we use to select projects? So with that, we're going to open it up for comments and questions, and we're particularly interested in feedback from you on the best ways to streamline access to funds. Curious what you think about the two-phased approach and combining the application processes.
Thanks, Violet. All right, so let's open it up for comments and questions. Again, please make sure to click on the raised hand option. If you're participating by phone, you can press #2 and we'll call on you. And once we open your line, just make sure to state your name and affiliation first before providing your comment or asking your question. All right, not seeing any raised hands so far, so let's give it another minute. All right, we have a hand from Christopher Chavez. You may unmute.
Yeah, thank you. This is Chris Chavez again with Coalition for Clean Air. Maybe not direct in answering the question that you posed, Violet, but one of the things I did want to make a point of or say is, mention that we do support funding for e-bike incentives and the e-bike incentive program. Just looking at ways and also just trying to promote clean transportation and access to clean transportation through things other than car ownership. I think is certainly great, and supporting active transportation, things along those ends. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Chris. All right, we have another hand. Linda, you may unmute.
Maybe you can tell us more about what the $10 million for planning is for. I know it sounds backwards as a planning agency, but we're finding that the programs are not offering, first of all, when we are doing our planning, we don't have participation from the utilities in the last 2 years like we used to have, maybe 5 years ago. So I don't know if any of that can go toward getting better input from the utilities as to what's happening in our region or how they can support what's happening in our region. And then the same kind of thing about funding for putting in the infrastructure. There's just not enough money, especially in our rural areas, for things like transformers and panels, and those kinds of things are causing great delays. Right now we have a project in one of our smaller cities, and the price from PG&E went from $10,000, it's now $40,000. Those kinds of things are really difficult to absorb, and especially with the current funding elements that the projects fund. So I am interested in that $10 million and seeing if that seems maybe a little bit off balance to me compared to what we need to actually put the stations in.
Thank you for your question, Linda, too. So the planning capacity building funding is really intended, and we kept that or made this a distinct funding category so we could fund a diverse variety of projects. And this is related to planning capacity building type efforts. So it really funds things from community transportation needs assessments, where you're working with the community to better understand transportation gaps and the needs in terms of transportation, and getting feedback and helping the community be more involved with those decisions that are being made, but also relationship building, developing forums to get the right, not just residents, but also local government or other agencies, I think, involved in the specific transportation needs of the community that these funds are intended to benefit. So it's not intended to fund infrastructure, but I think feasibility studies would be an option with planning capacity building, but also grid load analysis, things like that. So anything that doesn't require funding infrastructure specifically or the vehicles, unless they are used for outreach purposes, there is some flexibility there. It's really to plan those projects out. And then the idea would be to position the community to better access future funding to actually fund those mobility needs with our sub-programs that I mentioned, CMO, CMIS, and STEP. And potentially other funding programs. And that's why we're trying to build in the technical assistance for these services, so that technical assistance provider could also support the community in relationship building, but also finding other opportunities for funding if CARB funding does not quite match up with the needs of the community. Does that answer your question, or did you have some follow-up regarding that?
I don't know if you can still hear me. Yeah, that goes to my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. All right. Not seeing any hands currently. All right, I think we can move on.
Great. Thank you, Violet and Diane. So let's see, moving right along. So first, I want to thank everyone for joining us today and providing your thoughtful comments and feedback to help us shape our programs. And just again, we're just grateful for your continued participation. So as a reminder, here's a list of key dates for funding plan development. Staff is going to continue hosting work group and evening community meetings as needed. And as mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, the draft funding plan was released earlier this week. And the corrected version was later reposted yesterday on August 22nd. As a reminder, the draft plan contains staff's preliminary recommendations that will be discussed in detail at the August 31st funding plan workshop. And folks may access the draft plan by following the link that staff will drop into the chat. Following the final workshop, staff will develop the proposed funding plan, which will be released for public comment in October. And in November, the board will consider the funding plan with project implementation beginning in December. And lastly, we encourage everyone to reach out to CARB staff and sign up for our Gov delivery system to stay up to date on our project development and implementation activities. For your convenience, we've included the team email as well as the link to sign up for our Gov delivery notification system. So thank you again for joining us today.